I've been interviewing American expatriates about their experience living overseas. And we have a gentleman who I'm going to let introduce himself. I met him in his the jazz club that he manages, I guess, here in Cuenca. And thought it would be really interesting. He has a broad background, a broad experience, and I'm sure an interesting perspective on life in living overseas. So, Jim, do you want to tell us about yourself a little bit? Just a little bit of background here, and we'll go from there.
I found that at this point in my life that I preferred living in a city, in a walking city, that I no longer enjoyed living in the suburbs or just traveling by car alone. And in the U.S., it's basically a suburban country outside of New York City and San Francisco, both of which are very expensive to live in. And I'm a jazz pianist, and I'm on tour occasionally, and I landed here in Ecuador, and I found it to meet the criteria that I have for, the kind of quality of life that I would like to experience now. It's affordable on a pension. It's very interesting. You don't need a car. It's quiet, it's clean, and it just seems very hospitable. It seems like many European cities that I've visited, and with the additional benefit that it's more affordable. So that's.
Can you talk a little bit more about your jazz club and what's happening there?
It's not my jazz club.
Okay.
I do some work for the Jazz Society of Ecuador, where I perform at different places when asked. There's a few restaurants here in town, California Kitchen, a gentleman I know owns that. There's apparently a growing expat community here that's interested in having a night out experience. American entertainment, and jazz certainly is that. And I'm discovering a lot of Ecuador, a lot of the Cuencanos, as they call the residents of Cuenca, are interested in that too. That's been my experience. It's on a very small scale, but it's been very pleasant, and we've got a very good reception.
Based on the discussions and conversations that I've had with many of the people so far, it sounds like this is a great city for socializing, and that people have a more active social life here than they've had in the past at home. What's your impression about that?
Well, that's a huge subject. I mean, people are doing their dissertations on that. Since the days of television or now computers, what they call the glowing rectangle, whether they're looking at a TV or a computer screen. I just, at my age, I've witnessed that myself, and that's suburban life. Is you're in a metal capsule, your car, and there's, as I became older, I just was interested in living in a walking city where there are people on the street, where you don't have to be an automobile to get someplace. I find in my travels that Cuenca is kind of unusual in that, like I was in Asia, the expats have a close-knit community. I didn't find that to be the case in other countries that I visited. There were many expats there, but they weren't so close-knit. Here in Cuenca, it seems to be like a destination. for a lot of American retirees. Much to my surprise, most of them seem to be from what's called the Sun Belt or the Southwest. I know a cab driver told me when I told him I was from the East Coast that he met very few people from the East Coast. Why that is, I have no idea. But in any event, they seem to be pretty gregarious and close-knit and have a lot of functions, and there is an expat community here that seems to be more organized, more coherent, and more accessible than I found elsewhere.
I think you told me you came here because you were invited by a friend or something, came down, found it interesting, and decided to stay.
Yes, a friend of mine that I met in California came here, opened up a restaurant where I played the piano, and I visited him a year ago, and Cuenca kind of stuck in my mind. And in my travels, I was touring, playing in Asia, and I was actually thinking of settling down in Asia, and Cuenca just kept in my mind, and so I thought I would pay one last visit before I decided where I was going to plant my flag, so to speak. And excuse me, could I have nope? Where were we?
Yeah, to plant your flag here.
Yeah, and what I noticed about Cuenca is all the things that are obvious to anyone. It's clean, it's safe, it's very pretty. It's all the architecture, dating back hundreds of years. But what's really stuck in my mind is what's not here. I never realized how much I enjoyed walking down the street and not seeing a Starbucks sign, and not seeing billboards, not seeing all the corporate influences that seem to saturate America. And it's very pleasant because it kind of leaves you to your own thoughts.
We were talking about that a little earlier today, about how there is I like it also, an absence of, Hilton hotels and corporate headquarters. I mean, they're in Guayaquil and they're in Quito, that's fine. So I personally hope they don't come here. But I think that's what makes it unique.
It's a real pleasure to see us, all the dozens, maybe scores of clothing stores that are just owned by an independent owner instead of another franchise. I've never realized how corporate America, that you go to a corporate grocery store instead of the one I used to go to as a child. You go to a corporate clothing store. Movies are corporate. Everything is corporate. And here everything is independently owned, and it reflects the character of the owners of the various shops and restaurants.
Yeah, and I think that's very nice. It's also one of the reasons I live in rural Northern California is, I belong to a food co-op, and I can try to avoid those big, but they're coming in anyway, Walmarts and Safeways and, all these other big chains. But, anyway, so what are the challenges that you see that people face living overseas in a place like this? Just to give a little lead in here, some of the people, one of the people said last night that probably of all the expatriates here, probably 20% really are here as global citizens, and a lot of others are here because it's cheap or whatever. And some of them want to transpose this place, and really have it be more American-like. And so, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good point. There's no question in my mind that the affordability, as far as challenges go, the challenges are one of the first challenges that hits anybody planning to live anywhere else. I kind of don't really subscribe to the term expat. I haven't left America. I'm here.
Yeah.
for the time being. These are my plans. I'm American, and I'm at present living in Cuenca. How long that'll have to be, I don't know. But in any event, so I'm not ex anything. I'm in the middle of something here. I think the economics, though, given that I'm just here, a part of my reason for being here is I find myself in this, there is no place in the United States that I'm aware of where I could enjoy this quality of life on my pension.
Yeah.
That there isn't a walking city that the only walking cities that I know of would be in very poor areas of America that I would rather not live in. So this is kind of like a European life for a fraction of the cost of living in Europe.
Yeah, that's interesting, and that's one of the things that motivated me to come here. And this is kind of an excuse to interact and talk with people and learn about the life experience here. There's a French philosopher by the name of Gala who said that living overseas creates an expanded horizon of possibilities in your mind. And so I see that as a really important part of this overseas living experience, and hopefully people who live here will be open to learning about other cultures and another culture instead of just trying to
Well, that dichotomy you were speaking about between whether some people are global citizens and other people are trying to Americanize it, that's very real. And because I travel by the nature of my job, touring as a musician, it's one of the things that I noticed in my travels. Among other things, America is an island nation. When you're in Europe, the ability of the government to brainwash you or propaganda is limited somewhat, because you can get in your car and an hour later you're in another country and you can see for yourself what it's like. But America's an island nation, and many Americans don't travel.
Yeah.
Travel is not, excuse my voice, travel is education.
Yeah.
Travel is education. And when you come here, you see all the things that Americans that don't travel don't know what they're missing by nature. I've met many wealthy Americans who are of a mindset who will say, I have no reason to travel. This is the greatest country on earth. What have I got to learn? As though once they leave the borders, they're in some kind of state of deprivation. Not really knowing that a significant percentage of the world has a higher standard of living.
Yeah, it's very true. It's the same kind of experience talking to people. So, can you have a story or an episode that you can share with us that illustrates some of the best things about your experience of living here, being in Cuenca, or traveling abroad in general?
Well, at the risk of sounding repetitive, it's an amazingly, first of all, it's older. It's an old city that hundreds of years old with gorgeous historic buildings. This is a mineral-rich country, so you see houses that are housing lower middle-class people that are made out of marble and beautiful hardwoods, and so the architecture is gorgeous. The streets are all cobblestone. Every surface that you walk on has some kind of ornate tile. It's very, it seems artistic. You feel that you're part of the old world. Again, it's clean, it's safe. It's a city built before there were cars, so it's built to accommodate walking. And not only is it built to accommodate walking, but there's something to look at, because again, there's the absence of franchises, so you just have this continuing stream of interesting restaurants and clothing stores or grocery stores and theaters and so forth that are all unique, and it gives you an experience that's just not available in any place that I can afford to live in the U.S.
Yeah,
Cuenca, just to follow up on a thought, is Cuenca is not a playground for the rich. This is not where the people who would go to Monaco would come to live, or Paris. It gives you as much of that as they can, and on a social security check.
Yeah, I don't think there's a golf course here, does there? Which is kind of interesting. That would keep a lot of people away, I would think. Let's see, what advice would you have for other Americans considering living overseas or living here in Cuenca? Or anywhere like that?
Just some obvious pragmatic stuff, which is visit it first, see if you like it, and because know beforehand that if you decide to live abroad, that you're going to have to probably prepare documents that need special certification or what they call apostille documents, so that you should visit the place, live there long enough to see if it maintains your interest. And know that, have enough money in your bank account so that you can return to the States and prepare the necessary documentation to facilitate becoming a resident if that's your desire.
Good, that sounds like it'd be really helpful, and people do need to be aware of that. Is there anything else you'd like to comment on related to your experience of living abroad?
Living abroad or living in Cuenca?
Well, living abroad elsewhere or here in Cuenca.
Again, I imagine anyone interview, all they can bring to an interview is their own personal experiences, and I don't know that mine are similar to other Americans because I've been touring a lot and I've traveled a lot. It's just to see that there are, despite the propaganda, there are alternative places to live. There is, America's a wonderful place. I'm an American. I may return tomorrow, but the quality of life here, like say in Cuenca, is extraordinary. You would need to have a considerable income, I think, to live in an apartment or live in the downtown area that's interesting and clean. San Francisco comes to mind. Manhattan comes to mind. So I think it's a hell of a bargain.
Yeah.
And another thing I was just talking to earlier about, and that is this: because America is such a suburban country, and there's so little interaction, people on the street no longer talk to each other. You don't really notice it when you're in another country. If you have someone to talk to, you're not talking. It doesn't really strike you that you're not. You might as well be in wherever, Muskegon, Michigan, because no one talks to you on the street there either. So it's much more accessible than one would
It's a
might
big
think.
human scale city, isn't it? That's what I find.
Exactly.
And very attractive. I know that.
Well, this very interview that we're having, that wouldn't take place in New York, where we have this commonality. Where I assume you're from the States. And this very interview is representative or reflection of the cohesion of the expat community, or the Americans that are living here for however long.
You're talking about the cost of living here, and it's interesting to me because when I lived in San Francisco, just my apartment was as much as, there's a lady yesterday who I interviewed who lives in a 4,000 square foot house, and I asked her basically what her budget is per month, and she said, well, if I really kind of cool it, it's $1,500 a month. If I really blow it out, it's $1,800 a month. And I was paying more for a rent in a one-bedroom apartment in downtown San Francisco just to live there. Just for rent.
Well, that I'm very familiar with, and that is one of the fears. In other words, I have some friends who are considering living here who are afraid of what they call the gringo invasion here, which is Americans coming here and driving up the rental prices.
Absolutely.
That's a real concern.
For sure.
And what that's doing is it's pushing the Americans who aren't as affluent further out into the suburbs of Cuenca.